love this prompt.
Hey friends, hello, happy Friday. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. It's Lisa Hetrick on a very, very snowy Maryland day. So super, super snowy today. Have a really, really fun tutorial. Let's just do a quick pop in to say hi to everybody. Hey, oh my goodness. A lot of you popping in this morning. Hi, Kathy, Dawn, Donna. Well, there's a lot of you. 2 Dawns. Wilma. Oh, wow. Everybody's just having fun in the chat. So fun. So fun. Okay. All right, friends. Today's tutorial is going to be a little bit nerdy. We're going to focus on watercolor and stamping. And I'm going to be talking and sharing my newest stamp set with Gina K Designs called Lift Me Up. It's one of those stamp sets that has a big honkin' wide open space for us to do some really fun watercoloring and some really fun stamping techniques. So we're going to do that today. And yeah, a couple surprises along the way. So super, super fun. See all these people popping in. Really, really fun. Today in Maryland, it is snowing. I think it's going to be like 6 inches or so. So hopefully we don't lose power or anything weird like that, but I doubt it. So let's just get going. Hi, Michelle. Oh, a lot of people popping in. Paya, hello from Sweden. It's your first time here. Welcome. I love seeing that. All new people kind of popping in. So last week was the release party for my newest stamp set with Gina K. And today we're going to do a card focused on that. We're going to focus on the tutorial. So the content and the tutorials on this channel kind of moving forward are going to be more focused on some techniques, less on the card anatomy, if that makes sense. If you have questions along the way, pop a Q or a question in the comments so that I can answer it. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. All of the supplies, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, all of the supplies are listed down below in the description. They're in both areas, everything that I'm using today. So I'm not going to do a quick walkthrough of everything. When I'm using it, I will talk about it. Okay, friends. Hello, all. There's some more people popping in. Susanna's popped in from Finland. Loads of snow. Well, lots of snow there too. Okay, friends, today here is the card project that we're going to make, or here's the inspiration for the card project that we are going to make. And the technique that I'm going to focus on today is called negative painting. So here's an example of that technique done in a painting. Last week we talked about masking and doing layers of masked material in order to create negative and positive shapes. I'm building on that technique today and talking about negative painting because we're building on another technique and another one over the next 2 to 3 weeks, working up to another project together. So today we're doing negative painting, and that means we're going to be building up layers of color and negative shapes using our stamped images. So that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, I'm going to pop my face off of here. Hello, Charlene from Ontario, Canada. She just ordered the set. All right, friends, the set that we're using today is called Lift Me Up. This is a super fun set, and there is a coordinating die set. I'm going to be using this die as a standalone, which is really cool. This die works with the stamp, and we'll cut that stamp out, but it also works as a standalone piece, and that's what we're going to use it for today. Today we're going to be focusing on using this big honkin' wide open balloon image. We're going to be doing our negative and positive stamping in there, our negative watercolor technique inside here. And I'm going to be using these two balloons. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm using 100% cotton watercolor paper. This is Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor. I use this on all of my paper crafting projects. Love it, affordable, easy, already cut for the size we need. Super cool. Now, my watercolors that I'm using today, so we can have a little bit of nerdy watercolor chat too, are my Mary Blue. So these are some artist grade watercolors that are in a tube, and I've got the 3 colors just right down here on a little porcelain plate. I'm going to be using turquoise green, a Prussian blue, and a Payne's gray. So what does that mean to you with the supplies you have at home? If you're going, we're going to be using 3 different blues here. So you want to focus on a blue that's more like a bright blue or a cyan-like blue, something that's a little bit of a darker blue, and then something that's more of a blue-gray, closer to black. We're going to be using that graduation of color to create the for the technique that we're going to be doing today. Do you have to use my Mary Blue? Absolutely not. But one of the goals, one of the requests from all of you last year, as I was asking questions about heading into the new year, was to talk about different watercolor brands that are on the market, because there are differences between them all. So if you were building your watercolor collection, you kind of had some good information and some frame of reference. So today we're using my Mary Blue. I really like these watercolors. They are very, very vibrant. They're single pigment, which means they have one pigment in them. Really great for mixing, and we're going to use them today. So super, super fun. And I'll be using them more over time, and we'll take deeper dives. But today we're using these 3 blues because I really dig them. Okay, I've got some water here. We're going to get started. I'm going to move. Now, because it's snowing, you might hear plows, and you might hear some people on ATVs. So it might get a little bit loud, a little bit grumbly. Hey, it's live. Okay. All right, friends. Now, I've got my piece. Let's dive in. And remember, if you have questions along the way, just pop them in the chat, and we'll go from there. But we're going to get started on the main technique, and that is the negative watercolor painting. So I've got some inks. Now, the only 2 inks I'm using today, I'm using predominantly Obsidian, the Amalgam Obsidian, because we are doing watercoloring. And I'm using just this Gina K Innocent Pink. You could use any kind of light color for this technique. I just really need a light color so that when I stamp down this balloon, I just need that shape. I'm going to turn this sideways. It doesn't really matter your positioning for where you're stamping this on the watercolor paper. I just need it because we're going to die cut this out. I'm just kind of trying to get it into the center a little bit. I need to knock back the brightness a little bit here. There we go. Just to kind of help this along. Okay, now we're going to start with our first layer of watercolor. I've got a number 6 round. I'm using this Princeton round. I've got some clean water here, and I'm just going to paint on some water. Now that the Innocent Pink is going to bleed a little bit, and that's okay. And I don't really care if we go outside the lines here because we're going to be die cutting this piece out. Now, this first layer in our negative painting is setting up our base for our base color. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of this turquoise green. Oh, that color is so pretty. And just kind of drop it in and let it do its thing. Now, one of the things I want to share about my Mary Blue, this particular brand, is that it whooshes. As soon as it hits the water, it takes off. Okay? Not all, I got my little tidy towel here. I forgot I'm going to need that. Not all watercolor brands do that. They tend to stay where you put them. Some do. Like I've used Da Vinci watercolor quite a bit on this channel. And Da Vinci kind of stays where you put it a little bit. You can see I'm coaxing it around. And that's okay. I definitely want to keep this shape. Now the purpose of what I'm doing right now is just getting that base layer of color in, because we're going to be building up negative and positive layers of color from light to dark. And we're going to be doing our stamping too in between. All right, this is looking pretty good. Now remember, I've got my shape here so I can see where I am. And that's okay because we're going to be die cutting that out. I'm going to take my heat tool. I'm going to dry this completely dry. You could wait for it to dry, but I'm going to completely dry this so that we can move along and get our stamping started. Looking at everybody in the chat while I'm drying this. Woohoo! Hi, Cheryl. Okay. Let's turn this over a little bit. Okay. I want this completely dry because we're going to start to stamp over top of it. But what we have here is a base layer of that turquoise green color, which is more of like a cyanish, bluish color, which I'm kind of digging that. I'm going to start off with the blooms. I've got the bigger bloom. We're going to stamp our first layer of pattern in here. And I'm just going to be kind of random about it. Got this obsidian. Let me turn this upside down. You can see my pink layer here. I'm going to start at the bottom and kind of work my way up. And just kind of stamp that in. I'm going in rogue. You could use a Misty here if you want to. Just going to get a nice good stamping of this larger bloom. You can see I'm using the petals and kind of interlocking them a little bit just to get my pattern. I'm going to come up. This is going to be our first layer of color. 2, 3. I think I want to get, let's turn this yep, let's turn this way. I want to get like a 4, like a layer of 4 of the larger color. I mean the larger flower. I want to come in with this little flower. I'm going to pop one right here. And I don't know. We'll see. Let's see where we're going to pop it. I'm going to pop, no, I think I'm going to pop it right here. And then we're going to stop. Okay. Now I'm going to start to go in and do the negative painting. Now, negative painting means that we're going to come in and paint our next color up, our next darkest color, which is this Prussian blue, which is a darker blue, like a navy blue. And I'm going to start to paint around my shapes so that this shape starts to pop a little bit more. But it retains that base color that's there. We're going to start to see this come alive. We're going to do this in a layer of 3. I can see my outer shape is still there. Paper's dry, brush is wet. I'm going to come in. Let's get this Prussian blue activated. You can see how pretty that color is. Ah! Loving that color. Okay. Now, I have a number 6 brush, and the reason why I'm using this is it's kind of a medium weight, but it comes to a really nice fine tip. So that's going to give me opportunity to get in really close in between these layers. So I'm going to just start to come in and apply some of this color. And it's pretty heavy. I got a little bit too much water going. I'm coming in with kind of a thick layer of this color. I'm very, very choked up onto the paintbrush right here. If I was doing more washi techniques, I'd be kind of way out here. But for this, I'm coming in and I'm working my way around this. Okay. Deborah just said such an interesting painting method. Good morning from Texas. Good morning. All right, I'm coming in here. I really want to dry my brush off a little bit. Come in and get quite a bit of paint on here, just coming around. Now remember, my ratio here is probably not like a whole milk, which is like 100% pigment, very little water. My water to paint ratio is probably like a skim milk, and we'll see what I mean by that as soon as I start to spread some of this color out. See how I'm starting to lose my color there? I want there to definitely be a lot more coming around these shapes. I'm going to come around here too. Oy, I've got a lot of water there. Okay, so my brush, I've got a lot of water, so I'm just really just going to roll this a little bit and try to get some of that water out of my brush. These brushes, I know we're going to have a conversation coming up soon on the channel about brushes because that's one of the questions that many of you have asked, like brush favorites. Now, I tend to stick with brushes that hold a lot of water. This particular brand, Princeton Heritage, holds a lot of water. We've got a nerd out coming out right here, friends. I'm nerding out about brushes. Silver Black Velvet is another one that I use a lot that holds a lot of water. So when your brush holds a lot of water, you have to be conscientious of that if you are trying to get more pigment on your project. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to work with the pigment that's here and just kind of blend and spread it out a little bit. Going right out to the edge. Now these hard edges right here, just kind of want to blend them out. So my brush is wet, just with a little bit of water. See how I'm just kind of swooshing them and blending them out. I'm focusing a lot of color in here, but it's starting to, I want to get more in here. I want to come in and really intensify how dark this is. And I'm going to come up here and around here. So I'm focusing this first layer of negative painting, let's flip this upside down, right in this concentrated area instead of the whole balloon image. And you'll see why in a moment. Okay, let's go ahead and spread this out. Just kind of following the lines and coming around. Okay. Now, pop in the chat if you've ever tried this technique. Maybe in a different way. Maybe with embossing. You might have tried it with embossing, where you're building up your layers of color. I'm sharing it with you this way because we're going to build up to, like I said, we're building up our technique for a project that I'm going to be sharing with you in February. A painting project. A negative painting project. So see how intense everything is getting in here? Digging it, loving it, not loving this. See this right here? We kind of want to, my brush is wet. There's no pigment on it. I'm just going to bleed this out a little bit. I want some of that color. I want some of that blue to kind of come out into this area. But I don't want it to be as intense as it is here in the middle. So right here, I want to pull some of this color out. Okay, Donna's got a question. Hit me, Donna. Pop your question in the chat. Hi, Barbara. Barbara just popped in from North Carolina. I'm going to come around here and add a little bit right on this top petal. And then just kind of bleed this out. Now you can see we've got our dark color in here, but you can see that first layer of color, that first layer of that turquoise green blue is popping in these flowers. I want to come out. People are popping in the chat. I haven't tried this before, but you're looking forward to trying it. It's so easy, and it's got a lot of texture and dimension to it, this technique. See how I'm pulling some of this color out to my outer edge here, but it's not as dark as it is in here. I'm just doing this with water, and you're gonna see why in a moment. Okay, this edge right here is really dark, but a little bit too harsh of lines. So I'm coming in. I want that color to be dark right in here, but I don't want it to be super dark on my outer edge. So I'm just using some water and letting it do its thing and bleeding that out a little bit. Dawn says you need a steady hand. Maybe, sort of. My hand is pretty steady today, so, but take a peek at that. Now this is a little kind of harsh, but I'm not worrying about it. I'm kind of digging the way this looks. I want to add a little bit. The goal here is to add intensity of pigment and color within these middle areas. So here, some of these outer areas here, I've kind of lost some of that intensity. So I want to add it back in. So see, I'm just dropping it in. My brush is wet. My paper is wet. Paper's still wet in a couple areas. So I'm just going to do a little bit of wet into wet here, picking up some of the pigment, dropping it into the wet areas of the paper, and kind of letting it do its thing. I really love this color. Okay. Now I want to pull some of this color out to this area just a little bit, and a little bit right here. Again, lighter color on our outer edges, darker color on our inner parts here. And you can start to see we've got definition here. So we have these blooms are kind of popping up a little bit. They're coming up to the foreground. Our darker colors are in the background. Now I'm going to dry this and build another layer. So Donna, you said you had a question, but I didn't see it pop through. So if I missed it, can you pop it back in the chat so I can make sure I answer it? All right, we're going to use the heat tool, and I'm just going to dry this. Dry it from behind a little bit as well. Okay, Donna. Okay. All right, I'm digging that. Let's try that. Donna just shared this technique seems to require more intention. I think it is more, that's a really great way of saying it. I think it's more of there is intention because I am being very precise about where I'm going around my pattern flowers. But I also feel like this technique is kind of therapeutic. Whenever I'm working with watercolor, and I'm encouraging you to mix your watercolor with your stamped images, there's a lot of like therapeutic things going on here because water and watching watercolor in the water is just very calming. So intention is calm, right? My intention here is a really, really fun technique, but a calming and fun one to do. Okay, now we're going to go in and start doing our second layer and going in a little bit darker. So I've got my bloom, my medium bloom, and we're going to use our small bloom again. And I'm going to come in with Obsidian. Now we're going to start to see the reason why I was adding more color to get it to come out here, but not as light as our original. So I'm going to come out here and paint. Let's stamp this right here. Okay, so you can see that this bloom is darker. It's got a little bit of light compared to these. We're going to make that come alive even more. I'm going to come here. Some of that's going to get cut off, and I'm not too worried about it. And then I want to put one up here, but before I do that, I feel like I need to add just a little bit of color and bleed that out. So see how I'm adding just a little bit of that blue so that it is darker than what I'm seeing in here in these three, but not as dark as what I'm seeing in the middle here. So let's just go ahead and dry that. Okay, good. All right, now I'm going to come in with the smaller bloom. We're going to pop a small bloom in a couple places. And this pattern you can see is just kind of random. I'm going to pop a small bloom. We're going to pop one right there. And then I'm going to pop one right in here. Uh-oh, I might have overlapped a little bit. That's okay. We're going to pop one right in here. And I'm going to pop one right out here. Okay, so kind of random. I feel like I might want to put one right there. Yeah, I think I do. Let's pop one right there. I don't know. Let's come up here. All right, you can see that there's no rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of creating a pleasing pattern here. So my thought process is just kind of creating a nice pattern. So there isn't like a science to it. You need this number or that number. All right, now we're going to come in to add our next layer, and we're going to focus our darker colors on this outer edge where I've put the newer blooms. So I'm going to come down here. Let's get a good, nice, juicy amount of this Payne's Gray. Oh, I'm loving this. I love Payne's Gray. It is this gorgeous, beautiful blue gray, and in mostly every brand that's out there, it's just absolutely beautiful. Okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to get this darker color up against our outer edges here. Coming in a little bit. Oh, I got a big droplet of water. You can see I'm going to focus. My brush is very wet, so let's go ahead and kind of dry that out a little bit. And come in and just work with what we've got here and just pull that out to the outer edge. I picked these blues, because it's kind of wintry, and I kind of love these indigo blues. I think they're very striking. This would look really cool. This project can be done in any color. We're going to come in up and around my edge here. So I'm just going to go up and around. Oops. Just did that right there. So let's go ahead and start over here since I added some of that pigment. And see how I'm just going around this shape. Now, this technique works, the negative painting technique works best, friends, or works well the way I'm doing it here with a big wide open shape and images that are line art. Okay, so we're using open images, not solid. So these flowers are like line art open images because they're allowing us to see the colors underneath come through. Susanna just said, I always become very inspired when I watch your painting with watercolors. You're so confident. I always become inspired to try it for myself. Great! I love that. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Susanna. And the confidence comes from practice and play, and mostly play. because you're discovering new things. And that's what I'm here for, to help you build your confidence and have fun with it, to craft your joy. That's the whole point of everything that I'm doing on this channel, is for you to build your confidence. And remember, it's just paper and paint. And if you booger it up, you booger it up. You just go in and you play with it a little bit more. So you see how my colors, see how these images are starting to pop, because I'm placing a darker color up against them and creating that negative and positive shape. This blue, Payne's gray, look at it, really dark, very almost black. And then when you add more water to it, we're nerding out a little bit here, it starts to change and become like, you start to see that pigment separate. You get some of that blue separating, and it gets a little darker and a little lighter, and I just love it. All right, we're going to coming in around this delicate petals here and adding some of this color. Now, the technique that I'm sharing with you today might feel a little bit advanced, but you can see, and I would say if you were working on a painting like this one, like I shared, this was just a really rough idea. It feels a little bit advanced, but as you can see, I'm just breaking this down into 3 big honkin' small steps, and it gets a lot easier. A lot easier. All right, let's come in and add some color. I've got a lot of water on there. A lot of water. I want to kind of bleed that out a little bit. I don't want so much water. So you could use a brush that's a little bit more of a finer. The number 6 I think is good for me. And I can get in there and get around these edges. But if you didn't, you know, if you went into the stamped image a little bit, don't worry about it. No biggie. All right, I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a little bit here, but not all the way into the color, the Prussian blue that I did in the middle. Just adding a little bit. So you can see that I've got some darkness here, and it's making that second layer of the blooms pop. This layer, this layer, this layer, this layer. But look at these blooms, because we stamped them on watercolor that was darker than this layer. We're starting to get that contrast between the blooms and the colors, and that's what gives it that extra added texture and dimension without the height, without adding a bunch of layers and height. All right, I'm going to leave that be. I like the way that's blending into that color. I'm going to come back over here, and then I'm going to come back down around here. I'm going to come back right here and just add a little bit. Okay, color. Clean that off, blend that out, pull that out a little bit. Okay. Come around. Whoa! All right, come in again. I'm going to go around this petal and around this petal, and I've got my concentration of pigment here is more along the lines of whole milk, less water. You can see how close I am. Really choked up here because I really want to get around these petals well. I'm going to add some of that darker color right here around this edge, and a little bit more around here. Clean off my brush, really wipe it dry. Hi Paula, Paula joined us a little bit late. What ink did I use to stamp the flowers? Obsidian. So you want to stamp your flowers in a waterproof ink. So I'm using Gina K AMALGAM inks. You could use any other inks that you have that just would be able to, that wouldn't run when we watercolor with them. What other inks? I'm drawing a blank. So you want to make sure that you're using an ink that can work with watercolor. So like a lot of inks that can work with Copic markers and things like that would be great for this as well. You're welcome, Paula. All right, I'm blending this out to my outer edge here. Just kind of letting some of that dark, I want that to be really dark right there. Oh, I'm really loving the way this looks. We're getting that negative and positive shapes happening. You can see these blooms. See how these original blooms that we did, especially this one, are really, they have a blue tint to them, but they're a lot lighter than these blooms that we painted, what we just painted, or we just stamped. I'm going to come in and add a little bit of that color right here. So the technique here, I'm going to come around this guy right here. The technique again is called negative painting. And what you're doing is creating layers of color so that you have positive and negative shapes showing. You could do this, you could stamp your image and you could just paint around the whole entire thing and leave it white, and that would be negative painting. But we're doing it a little bit differently because we're adding our layers of 3 different blues to help bring this, composition to life a little bit. I'm kind of digging it. I want to do something right around this edge to help this bloom, which is tinted blue because it has that little bit of that turquoise green from the base, but I want to bring it out even more. So let's just pop in a little layer right here. I'm really loving this. Okay, cleaned off my brush, just kind of trying to just move the pigment that's here and let that be. See how I'm just tapping, dancing my brush around it. I'm going to come around this edge just a little bit, pull some of this pigment up and into here. Just kind of let that be. This edge right here is a little bit hard. I'm going to come back with that middle color that we used, which was Prussian, this Prussian blue. I'm going to come back and add a little bit more of that in. Clean off my brush. And then drop. Just kind of blend it and feather it down to meet this darker color. I kind of feel like we have some harsh lines up here. I'm not really super worried about it because some of this edge is going to get cut from the die cutter. All right, I'm digging this. I'm loving this. Now, what I want you to take a peek at before I dry this, we're going to stop. So the question I often get is, how do you know when to stop? Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you just keep going and then you make kind of a mess, and then you've learned that lesson to like stop when that first inclination you feel, that first thing that you're feeling is like, I think I may need to stop. And that's what I'm doing here. I think I need to stop. So why I am stopping at this point is because I have the negative and positive look that I wanted to achieve. So you can see that my colors here, we've got our lighter blues from that first layer that we painted showing through those blooms. And then these blooms right here, we've got are a little bit darker because we stamped them on the darker layer, that second layer of color that we laid down, the Prussian blue. So I've got the contrast in the negative and the positive look happening in my blooms here. So I'm good to go. We're going to stick with what we have here. Now, let's go ahead and dry it because we're going to run it through the die cutter. Pamela said she loves this. Awesome. Right, let's just get this nice and dry again. All right. Okay. Now I have, let's head over to the die cutter. Look at this. I actually got it to work today. Got the camera to work. I'm going to bring over the big honkin' die. So we have the big honkin' balloon die. And we're going to pop this over. I've got some, so you can see how I can kind of move this around because I kind of retained that shape. I can kind of move this around a little bit. So we're going to pop this right here. See how I'm getting a little bit of that bloom is going to cut off, and I kind of digging the way this looks. So let's go ahead. Normally I don't tape things down, but guess what? I'm going to try to tape this down. Here's the cutting mat. I'm using the Gina K Intracut die cutting machine. I love this. So I do it this way. I've got the cutting mat on the bottom. The die is, oops, going to cut right into the mat, not into the platform. Let's just get this down. We're going to run this through. I really like this die cutter because it's very, first of all, it stays in place. A lot of other people have done videos about the Intracuts, including Gina. I really like how quiet it is, and it doesn't, like when everything comes out, it doesn't make that badonk sound where everything just kind of shoots out the other side. And it's really easy on my hands, which I have carpal tunnel in both hands. So I really like this die cutter because it's very, very easy on the hands. All right, I'm digging this die cut. Let's head back over to our down camera and take a peek. Oh my gosh, I really love the way this looks. Let's come in a little tighter. We're going to come in a little tighter. So, technique-wise, we've got our negative and positive images happening. Does anybody have any questions about that? So, when I did the painting, you can see we've got layers of negative and positive. Here, you can see the layers of negative and positive using our stamped images. This has a little bit of blue in it because it was at the bottom. It has a little bit of white. We've got darker layers of blue in some of these top pieces and lighter layers of blue from that first layer in some of these blooms. And because we kept adding layers of color in and around, we're helping our eye focus on the negative and positive parts of the stamps, and it's popping them out. So we get this illusion. Just realize I'm super nerding out. We get this illusion of texture and dimension, and we get this illusion of flowers coming forward and flowers going backward because we've added different layers of color around them, creating the negative painting. Okay, let's go ahead and move on, and we're going to build our card layer. Now, here is the card stock I'm using. This is Gina K Designs Soft Stone. I really wanted that card base to kind of be neutral so that when I added this big honkin' blue blooms to it, we've got that pop happening. And I've got a piece of watercolor paper layered in here using the Master Layouts 4. I've got that down in the description. Master Layouts 4. I love to use this die a lot. It creates some really nice, that stitching look. It looks like I got a little boogered up spot right there. So let's go ahead and kind of trim that. So I pre-cut this, and we're going to lay this down onto our base. I've got a little bit of Gina K glue. Let's check it first to make sure it's working. I like using the Gina K glue, especially in these applicators. You get a really nice, quick application, but a really fine one. And I like using it with watercolor paper because watercolor paper, especially this one, is just going to suck this up. But it really does help it stick well. I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm eyeballing it. Kind of getting that layer in there. This layer is really going to only serve the function of holding the balloon and the layers that I'm getting ready to put on. And I'm also going to stamp the basket. I'm going to show you how we're going to stamp the basket in. All right, that's on there. That's on there really good. You got to watch it. Look at my fingers from the ink and, you know, chopped off nails and all that good stuff. If you get it on your watercolor paper, so be it. It'll be fun. All right, now I'm going to bring in my basket stamp. That's part of the kit, part of the stamp set. And I'm just going to eyeball this. Now, this is not super flat, okay? But I'm playing with it a little bit because I just want to get this eyeballed on here to give me my position for where I'm going to put the basket. Now, the basket stamp has like an upper part that's a little bit not as wide as the bottom. You could do the basket this way, or you could do it this way. You could do it either way. I'm going to come in and I am going to paint on some of this Payne's Gray. I'm going to put a little bit of this Payne's Gray. You could use a stamping ink if you want, but I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to put a lot of this Payne's Gray on. We're going to stamp some of it off and then stamp again. I'm going to grab a little piece of watercolor paper here. I'm going to stamp off just to get all that boogery stuff off. And I'm going to stamp right here. Just kind of eyeball this. We'll see what happens. And just kind of get that on there. I wanted to have that washy watercolor look, but still retain the shape of the basket. And that's what we did. Okay. Now we're going to start in with some assembly here. All right, I've got some, thank you, Donna. Donna said so pretty. I'm going to turn this over. Gosh, I hope that's dry since I just stuck it right on there. I've got some foam tape. Let's just go ahead and cut some of this. Not really worried about where I'm going to place the foam tape because I'm not going to be trying to layer things underneath it. So I'm just going to get a little triad of it on there. Sometimes I'm kind of challenged getting this foam tape stuff off. So let's go ahead. Oopsie. Look what I just did. See what I just did? My original piece. I just boogered it up. If that happens to you, you can try to get it off, or you can just laugh and just be like, okay, I just boogered up my original. Let's see if I can wipe some of it off. Oh well. All right, let's move on. Hey, my Aunt Joyce just popped in. Hi, Aunt Joyce. It's great to see you. We're great to see you. She said, good morning, Lisa. Love seeing you live. Good morning. All right, I'm going to pop this on here. It's great to see you. I hope everybody's well. All right, we've got this on here. Now, if you really wanted to blend this out a little bit, you could come in and blend this out just a smidge because it's paint. Look, I could go in, I could blend it just a little bit, but I kind of like the rough look of it, so I'm going to leave it. Now we're just going to start to put a couple things on here and finish up this card. So I took the Lifting You Up sentiment from the set. Here it is, Lifting You Up, and I cut it out with the coordinating die. I also stamped one more of the medium-sized blooms on watercolor paper and left it white. We're going to use that as a contrast piece. And I took this big honkin' banner die and I cut it out of a piece of vellum, or this might be tracing paper actually. Tracing paper or vellum, just something that'll give that like translucent look. And we're just going to build this card and then add a little something. So I'm going to start with the banner element piece because it's going to kind of go over the edge a little bit. And you're going to figure out where you want to put it based on where your pattern is. Now this banner piece the intention of the design, it will go edge to edge on your longest edge of your balloon. I'm going to add just a little tiny bit of glue right here. Boom. Oopsie. I can't really see it. I hope it's on there. Just a little bit of glue along the way, maybe a little bit right here, and that glue will disappear if I don't get it all over my fingers first, right? All right, and I'm just gonna kind of plunk this in and move it. I think I want it to come across here. Just kind of pat that down. Now, we've got that layer, we've got a textured layer here, but because it's that vellum or that trace paper, it's translucent, so it adds a little bit of extra texture and dimension without it covering up the watercolor work and the pattern that you did underneath. Now I'm going to take this guy, this little flower, and I think I'm going to put it right there because there's like a negative space happening right here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of glue, pop a little glue underneath there, and kind of play with this. Just kind of pop that right there. Yeah, kind of like that. And then take my lifting you up, and just I'm going to anchor that between here and here. Now I like this sentiment. I like, as part of the design of these, the dies and the stamps, we're starting to provide the outline around your sentiments, and that just kind of gives you that organic shape around the sentiment. Oh, I'm digging that. Without doing, just kind of makes it very interesting. I like it. All right, I've got some Gina K I think I might have forgot to put these in the supply list. Little gems. If I forgot, I'll go back and do it. And then I have my little picker thing from Gina K. That pokey picker, the pokey thing and the wax thing on this side. This thing has been great. And normally I don't add a lot of extra stuff on the card project, on the final card project, but I feel like these little gems just add a little bit of a crystal kind of look. I'm going to come down. I think I want to put it right there. Just adds a little something extra. That's kind of fun. Let's do a big one right here. And then let's do like a little small one out there. And we'll let that be the way that is. Oh, I'm digging this. Let's pop this up here. Loving the way this card looks. Let's look at our original inspiration. You can see we've got a little bit more of a negative and positive thing happening out over in that upper left. But it's also happening in this one too, right in here. Love that. Love that. And we made it, holy smokes, we made it like within the hour too. Which, wow, that was a pretty intense watercolor technique that we did in less than an hour. So, okay, friends, this was super, super fun. I hope you really enjoyed this negative painting technique with your stamped images. And it encourages you, I hope I've encouraged you to get out your watercolors and your stamps and give this a try. If you've ordered the Lift Me Up stamp set, and when it comes, you've got this technique that can be really fun. Try it out in a bunch of different colors. But just remember, the colors that you're using, you're just going to go from a dark to a lighter version within the same color family, like we did with the blues that we did today. I just love it. Okay, friends, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really grateful that you could join me during lunchtime on this snowy Friday to craft your joy. We'll be doing a new technique next week. That video is the live is probably going to happen on Friday as well. And we're going to focus on, I'm looking at my notes, watercolor patterns, stencil layering, and doing a similar negative and positive technique with stencils. using the Lift Me Up stamp set and something else in the mix. Okay, friends, I'll be back next week. If you're on my email list, you'll get that information and the link right into your email. If you're not on my email list, I'd encourage you to join. The link is down below in the description. I also have a free community in my online classroom at craftyourjoy.com. I'd love it if you join that free community. It's sort of like my own little social community outside of Facebook and Instagram and all the things. And in that space, I share a lot of content there that I don't share elsewhere. And it's free to you. So consider taking a peek at that as well. All right, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. I will see you next week, and I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. Have a great one. Stay warm, and I'll see you next week. Bye, friends.